What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is the Blue Stable. We are back with another episode. I know it's been a while, but we are here. We are finally here to return. I want to know how you guys are doing in the comment section, so feel free to let us know. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. I got my guys with me here today. Michael, how are we doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. It's been an eventful April. Had some fun last week. TCU spring game and everything. Had some fun. Saw some faces. It was really cool. And then, obviously, here in 6 days, the wait is finally over. We're gonna see whoever be the quarterback be announced as the number 4 pick to the Indianapolis Colts, or later, or earlier. Who knows?
All right, Landon, how we doing, man?
And I'm doing great. It's finally Friday. Just ready to get the weekend over. Then we get into draft week. That's right. It is a full week. And kind of get myself prepared to meet you in Kansas City for this. Super excited for that. Just kind of spent the night going back over the quarterbacks, making sure I didn't miss anything because we've had some news drop here in the last few days about maybe Houston passes, maybe Arizona passes, on trading the pick, and the Colts could have their pick of 3 guys. So I've been, like I said, I put it out on Twitter. I've been dotting my I's, crossing my T's, just looking at a few different things, just trying to be prepared for anything that could happen next Thursday night.
Absolutely, man. Definitely, it's going to be the perfect week for us, man. We love the roller coaster events of emotions when it comes to the draft. It's the best time of the year. We don't want a bland draft. We want to spice it up. We want some NFL teams to go out there on the risk and take a limb because this is a a questionable draft because there's a lot of question marks in a lot of areas, but it's a lot of depth as well when you talk about offensive line, we talk about tight ends, corners. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this draft's going to turn out. But before we get into that, we got to talk about some news today from the Colts themselves when it's talking about Shaquille Leonard. Shaquille Leonard's definitely still recovering from an injury. He had a presser the other day, and he talked about his injury and how he's still recovering from it. And it leaves the Colts in a predicament of moving forward of what you want to do with this guy. Because it's not a regular injury when it comes to Shaquille Leonard. This injury is very tough to recover from. And at his position and how important he is, it's like, what do you do moving forward? So I want to ask you, Landon, your thoughts on Shaquille Leonard and what do you think the coach should do?
Well, so it seems like everything is progressing along, nicely as far as we know. Of course, with the Colts, we've heard that before, and I think fans have been burned by those statements, before. But everything that I understand is that everything was kind of fixed. The nerve issues and all that kind of stuff. Now it's just about getting that calf muscle, that ankle, all that kind of stuff back to full strength. Which, look, anytime you're dealing with nerve issues and stuff like that, there's not really a timetable, and that's really why they can't put a timetable on it, because some people it can heal fast, some people it takes years, some people never get it back, and that's a scary proponent. And especially when you have a guy as talented as him, on a Hall of Fame trajectory, you don't ever want to see anything like that happen. But he says he's feeling better than he's felt at any point last year, which is a good sign. And hopefully over the next 6 months or so, we can really kind of see him continue to build that strength in that ankle, especially now that he's not in pain anymore. He can fully start rehabbing everything and be back to the Shaq that we all know and love. As far as what I think they should do, I think obviously re-signing EJ was a big move. Having Zaire Franklin step up last year and play the way he did, that was huge for this team. And I think there's some other guys here on the roster too that could surprise people. I know JoJo Doman. He was a guy that I really liked coming out last year. Was super excited the Colts got him. And I think he could also kind of step in, play some spots, some spot starts and stuff like that, play a role. And I think they should target a linebacker in this draft as well. I really do think. Now, this isn't a great linebacker draft, but I think there are some depths and some guys that fit what the Colts look for as far as athleticism, length, having the long wingspan. That's really, the athleticism. That's really kind of what they target at linebacker. So they might be more raw on the raw end and play more special teams reps, this year, maybe even next year. But as we've seen, they start out on that trajectory, and then eventually that athleticism and that talent really does come through, and they're able to really produce at the linebacker spot. And Chris Ballard's done a phenomenal job from drafting at the linebacker spot. So if he's high on a guy in this class and takes him, I'm going to trust his gut on this one.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm glad you mentioned the draft and the linebacker position, because I definitely was going to ask you and Mike that. So you already hit on that. And also, I just want to say that it definitely, we might not have the best linebacker group in this draft class when it comes to the position, but it also depends on, when it comes down to what team picks that linebacker. There's a team, if you get an athletic one, they can turn out to be the best linebacker in the draft or maybe be even a star at that position. It all depends on what place you get them and who do you get and what type of scheme you run with that player as well. So a lot of things go into that scenario. So I want to ask you, Mike, your thoughts on Shaquille Leonard and then the draft question as well when it comes to linebackers as well for the Colts.
I gotta make sure my mic is actually working this time. So with Shaquille, because I still get caught in between calling him Shaquille or Darius, even though he doesn't mind being called both. So but with Shaquille, I've already, people who have watched the show for a while already know my concerns with Shaq and the injury history that he's having when he's 27 years old, and then the history of this linebacker position. It's a violent position. You're hitting guys full speed, middle of the field. You're going up against linemen head to head, and there are some head to head collisions. It's just a violent position. So I hope the injury stuff is behind him. Like Landon said, when it came to the nerve, the fact that it's responding well after this third procedure, it's a good sign. The fact that it's responding well, it is a good sign. I don't know. It's not necessarily a fear, I guess, yet until we get to training camp and see where he's at then. I don't fear that he'll have to miss 2023. I don't fear that yet. Like I said, until we get there to training camp and see what the update is then. But the fact that he's doing okay now is obviously a very good sign. It is like you said, Marcus, it puts them in a little bit of predicament because of the financial commitment they've made to this guy for 5 years. It makes a huge risk financially, because worse come to worse, and trust me, knock on wood, if worse comes to worse and this doesn't get better to the point to where it allows him to get on the field, it's a tough situation all around. And Shaquille's going to be a millionaire anyway, so that's good for him. But right now, I don't want to talk about too far down until something happens and an update is given. But for right now, the Colts should have a backup plan, because like Landon said, you don't know when it comes to a nerve. This isn't a muscle. This isn't a ligament. It's a nerve. And the good thing for him is this is the NFL. They're the Indianapolis Colts. They're getting him the best doctors, the best neurologists. They're getting him the best guys. I hope I used the right word there, the neurologist. So if I didn't, I'm not a medical professional, okay? So don't get on me. But as long as it's progressing, I hope it is. But a backup plan should definitely be in play here.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Is there anything else you want to touch on, Landon, before we move on?
Well, I mean, so I didn't know if you guys had any guys in mind that you would like to see, because I know if you haven't already seen it, myself and Jack did the draft show. We just covered the linebacker position this last week. So if you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out. And we go really in depth on some guys the Colts could target there. But I'm curious to see if you guys have any, because, for me, really like the Dorian Williams, the Owen Papo, even a little bit higher, maybe in the second round, high third round, maybe like Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. Like all these guys fit that profile of having, the long arms and the speed and really rangy guys that can play sideline to sideline and even drop back in coverage. So I didn't know if you guys had any linebackers that you kind of had your eye on that the Colts could maybe target, and if so, where in the range would you kind of feel comfortable with the Colts actually taking a linebacker in this draft?
So I mean, I think you, Landon, know who my guy is. But speaking realistically, I think Demarion Overshawn is a guy that if I think about, he's a guy that I target. And he's a guy that you and Jack also talked about that night, and that was a great show. It was. He's a guy that fits that prototypical build, long, rangy, played at Texas, was really good in the run game, got better as his career went on at Texas and as that staff changed. But the biggest thing for DeMarvion this year was a coach that had a real big hand in his development, his jump from 2021 to 2022 was former TCU coach Gary Patterson. He was a special assistant to Steve Sarkisian. He came over as a defensive consultant. I'm not sure if you guys know, but he was really instrumental in the game plan they had against Alabama. The DC didn't have that game plan. Gary Patterson put that game plan in place. And the position group that he worked with the most was linebacker. And you could see it. Their linebackers were all over the field. They were filling gaps in the run game. They were all over the place. And Overshawn took a big step there. So I feel like that's a guy who I would feel comfortable ranging even in the third round. Third round, I'm not sure if he's going to be there in the fourth. You're more of the expert on that than I am. Not sure if he's going to be there in the fourth. But that's guy, if I wanted to target somebody, that's who I would go with.
Yeah, two sleepers for me. Probably like late in the draft. That I would want personal favorites. Like when you talk about coverage or just playmaking ability, probably Dallas Grant out of Toledo, or then you could do Michael Bakersfield, of course, because he's LSU Tiger. It's those two linebackers, guys, are definitely coverage wise. Because we know with Shaquille Leonard, he's a playmaker, but coverage wasn't his best suit. But he's still a dog. But if you wanted to go like talent wise from there, those are two guys, the sleepers that I enjoy watching that linebacker position that I could pick if I had that choice.
Yeah, and I even had them taking a linebacker there in my first mock draft, which if you guys haven't seen that, so I had them targeting let me pull it up here just to make sure I get the name right because
the Utah kid.
Dude, I've been butchering names like one other over like the last week.
That's a tough one, but the Utah kid, yeah.
Yeah, Mahmoud Diaby, linebacker out of Utah. He's another guy who's got great length, great speed, and he's really like very young in his linebacker development. So if you did not know, he was
a position change, right?
Yeah, so he was he was like an edge rusher, defensive lineman, and he transitioned into off-ball linebacker this last season. And so he's very young in his development, but he showed a ton of upside and like really like it almost came natural to him. And that's really what you kind of look for with guys like that. And like late round flyers is, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism, he's got the range, and he's just raw. And to play a position and have it come a little bit more naturally to you, I think that's a big step in what you can see in the growth of a guy. So he would be a guy too that you could even have, 6th, 7th round, maybe even a priority undrafted free agent. Although I do think he is going to be drafted. I think probably in that 6th round range, or possibly even higher. You never know.
Yeah,
in the NFL draft, but but I will say this before we end and get on to the next segment. One guy on this team, if I had to pick one person on this Colts roster that I would never bet money against, it's Shaquille Leonard. Like I would never bet against that guy to not do what he says he's going to do. Like his work ethic, his intensity, his leadership, just the way that he goes about not only just on the football field, but just everyday life, the intensity and the passion he has for life. I would not bet money against that guy not coming back to form and being, the Shaquille Leonard we all know and love.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. Me and Mike definitely, we had our conversations in the past about him and his abilities and what he can do. I mean, I'm a Shaquille truther as well, so I don't have any doubt in my mind Even we've seen him personally on 25%. He's still making plays out there. Like he's just a flat out dog. Still one of the best linebackers in the league, 50% or 100. So I just can't wait to see him on that field because he's that presence that the Colts need for sure, man. But we're gonna hop into another conversation discussion for the Colts. You know, we just had the Chris Ballard presser yesterday, and we haven't be talking about it. And we have a few thoughts we want to share with it with Mike and Landon. But you know, I have my notes here on the side as well. There's a few topics that he did touch that I want to bring up, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts first before I mention it because I don't want to have the same thing going on it. Mike, if you happen to watch it, the Chris Ballard presser, what was your thoughts and reaction to it? Because he talked about a lot of things, and there was a few funny moments in there as well. But what was your thoughts about it?
Chris Ballard being typical Chris Ballard, trying to, sway the media one way and then be funny here. And then reports come out and he tries to dispute those reports. And just a typical Chris Ballard press conference, really. There wasn't a whole lot that I took away from it. Me personally, there really wasn't a whole lot going on in this one. Really about the quarterback, and that's really what it was. I think when it came to first round grades, however, I think he said 17. I think that's what he said of how many players he has a first round grade on. So especially if he was drafted in the 20s, you could probably, guess, hey, if he was, I butchered that. If he was drafting in the 20s, would he have revealed that answer? Do y'all think?
Yeah, probably because it's Chris
Probably.
Ballard. Probably. He's like the one thing that Ballard is, and he even said it in the press conference, is like the dude's very honest if you know what to listen to. Like, so there's a very good chance that he would have told you. And there's been a lot of instances in the past that he says exactly what he's gonna do, and then he does it. And I don't really think it was any different with this one. I mean, he's extremely honest. He tells you his thoughts on things. I mean, he's not going to like flat out come out and give you, their draft board or anything like that. But I thought it was, I thought it was revealing in a sense, like at least like a few different times. There were a couple of things that I kind of caught on to. And if you haven't already seen it, so he did an interview with Colts.com as well on a radio on the podcast interview as well. It was about a 12-minute interview. You can find it on YouTube or on the Colts official podcast. So after the presser, he sat down with those guys and talked. So there were some good, bits in there as well. And I'm sure Marcus will touch on the points, a few of them. But at the end of this, if he didn't, then I'll kind of tell you what I kind of took away a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the things, of course, that he mentioned here was the draft chatter when he's talking about Will Levis and everything, and then you know how a lot of Colts fans thinking that the Colts are just targeting one quarterback and it's just circled around that they're going to go get the guy. Ballard shot that down so fast and talking about that's just not true. So a lot of Colts media, especially I've been seeing personally on Twitter, is that they all think that the quarterback situation is already solved, and the mock drafts are coming out and everything when they talk about, oh, this team's going to get Bryce Young, Will Levis is going here, Richardson is going here. And I just don't think that's true because anything can happen at any moment, especially in this NFL draft. Especially we just mentioned the grades that came out, and I know Landon touched on it when he was talking about CJ Stroud's grade was like 18% or something like that, which just isn't true. So you guys got to definitely, if you want to touch on that real quick, Landon, when he was talking about those grades and how important that is.
Yeah, the S2 scores.
Yes.
Yeah. So the S2 scores, so there's a few different things with them. And what a lot of people don't understand is it's like a conglomerate of like 9 different types of testing that gives you a singularity score. And it's not like a score. It's not a percentage of like what they scored. It's a percentage of how they tested compared to other athletes. So while CJ Stroud might have tested at 18%, which he didn't, by the way. But say, for example, CJ Stroud, it comes out, the 18%. That might only be on one of the 9 tests. And all the other, the 8 tests, he could have scored 98 percentile on. So he was 18th percentile in one. He didn't score an 18. He that's the percentage of where he is compared to others that took the test. But the other 8 tests he could have aced. And I can tell you right now from people that I have talked to, all 4 of these quarterbacks graded very highly on this test. So when you see people say like the S2 scores are, oh, he flunked and he didn't do that great on this. No, it's false. They all did great on the S2 scores. And really only, I believe, there's like maybe like 20 something teams that are subscribed to the S2 scores. So I mean, it's just a tool like anything else. It's not the end all be all, and it's so new too. I think they've only been using them for like 7 years or so. So I mean, you can't really predicate success off of that small of a sample size. So I mean, yeah, right now it might look good for guys that score high and their transition to the NFL, but say we get 20 years into this, that can look very different than what it looks like right now. And so you just have to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. And that's, anything that comes out this time of the year, whether it's S2 scores, whether it's Wonderlic scores, whether it's athletic testing numbers, whether like the most important evaluation of a prospect is what they do on the football field. And that can only be found in the game film. And unless you're watching the game film and you know what you're looking for and you're breaking it down, then you're not going to get an accurate picture of what a guy does. And that's the single most important part. But I had a tweet earlier, the founder of the S2 scores, he did, he was on PFF on one of their podcasts with Sam Monson. And great podcast, by the way. If you guys don't listen to it, you should check it out. But
the GOAT, Sam Monson.
Yeah, who just followed me on Twitter today, by the way. So shout out to Sam. But the guy that said, he's like, we don't know where all these leaks are coming from all these. He's like, I'll tell you right now, like a lot of these aren't false. He's like, because we'll get asked question or, we'll see a report. And it's like, oh, well, you didn't do that great on this test. He's like, and it's just false. It's not true. So you have the founder of the S2 scores saying that these reports are fabricated and false and stuff. So just take all this stuff with a grain of salt. And it's not a final evaluation of a product. Just because a guy doesn't do well on one part of the S2 scores doesn't mean he didn't do great on the other 9, which if they did do bad and say it did leak, like I'll say like the Bryce Young testing, like, so that is true. Like that was actually, and that's from Bryce Young's team as well. They wanted that out there. And that is true. So yeah, Bryce Young scored in a 98th percentile total, combining all 9 tests. 98th percentile, and did fantastic. But CJ Stroud also scored extremely high. Anthony Richardson scored extremely high. Will Levis scored extremely high. All these guys did really well in this. And it's, like I said, it's just a tool to use. So it doesn't mean they're going to flunk. It doesn't mean they're going to be great. It doesn't. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like my view on it. And from people that I trust, that I know, that's their view on it as well. So, I'll kind of leave it at that.
Hey, man, you can't forget the GOAT Jake Hanier, man. He had a good score, too. So, NFL teams better be careful because he can definitely, he can slip up in the draft. Just saying.
Yeah. I can't speak on to what his score is. I don't know. But that report that leaked earlier this morning where all those scores came out, like,
man, Twitter went crazy when that dropped.
Don't buy into that stuff. Nobody has access to all of that stuff except NFL teams, and they're not letting that stuff out because it is like one of the things with the S2 stuff is like that information is basically on lockdown unless they get permission to release it. And if they are not given permission directly from the player, then it's not getting out.
For sure. Mike, did you want to touch on that at all? Or
I mean, it's not even an NFL thing. It's a private testing thing. So that makes sense. But not really on that certain thing. I think Landon said it all. I don't have anything else to add to that, really. Again, this is lying season, man. You've already heard stuff about CJ Stroud, so that means who's trying to get him to fall, right?
Shout out to Brady Quinn.
There's already talk about Houston skipping on a quarterback, which makes sense because CJ Stroud's agent is the same as Sean Watson. So it makes sense. Even though they're the same agency, I believe athletes, they're still the different agent, but CJ Stroud still has the same one as Deshaun. It never made sense Houston would take Stroud to begin with. So when it comes to that, who's trying to make who fall? Bryce Young's going to be number one. Colts going to have their pick at one of the three, hopefully, if nobody trades up. But I mean, when it comes to that S2 and everything, you can only take so much away from that. I mean, that's really for NFL teams, honestly.
Yeah, and let me touch on that Brady Quinn thing as well, because I know I saw a lot of that as well on the timeline, and that is just blatantly not true as well. So like the real story, and this is, coming from a few different people, and this is from stuff that I've heard as well, because I like immediately when I saw it, I texted somebody. I'm like, hey, like, is there any truth to this? No, it's not. So what happened was it was a last minute thing. 24 hours before the passing academy, they reached out to the Manning Academy, reached out to CJ Stroud just to see if he would be interested in being a camp counselor. It was very last minute. CJ Stroud already had plans, had organized his wide receivers at Ohio State to meet with him to do a throwing session and to train, as well as I believe he was doing like a youth camp thing as well around that time. And so he basically just told them, he's like, yeah, I mean, I would love to do it, but I already have previous commitments. It's kind of a last minute thing. So like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. He didn't blow the Mannings off. That never happened. He didn't ghost them. I believe the term that was used. He ghosted the Manning Academy. That's not true. They contacted him very last second to see if he'd be interested. He had previous commitments. He couldn't do it. Told them that, and that's where it ends. So I don't know where Brady Quinn got that he had ghosted them and told them he was committed to doing it and didn't show up or talk to anybody. Like, that's false.
Yeah, when it came out, I was just like stunned because I think I sent a tweet out as well. Word for word, I can't remember what it was. It was like 2 days ago, but I think he ghosted the Mannings. I think that's what I had said. And then I started digging deeper into it. I'm just like, Brady Quinn is knowledgeable. Don't get me wrong. He's respected. But is he respected, or does he have that kind of pull within NFL circles and agents and everything? Because he's more of a college football kind of guy with coaches and recruiters and programs. Not sure where he is on the NFL level. So I'm just like, he's the only one saying this. No one else is saying this. No one else is reporting this. So clearly he was tipped by somebody to make up a story, to turn it around, to try and get CJ Stroud to fall. Who it was is my guess. No one knows. Well, not nobody, but I don't know. So, but I'm just saying teams will do what they have to do to get somebody to fall.
Yep, the media has an agenda to push, man. So I'm not surprised by that.
It sucks too. That's the worst part about this time of the year, because like you can affect, like, it's not only like people think about it as like, oh, well, they want this guy to fall, but they don't ever think about when a guy does fall, and it affects their money as well. It affects their ability to take care of the family. It affects their ability to take care of the people that are depending on them. And, it's just a really unfortunate thing that is part of this process, because I hate it. But I'll say this, like the NFL teams, like no report in the media is going to drop that NFL teams don't already know about and don't know if it's true, don't know if it's false. These guys, they're already well aware of every little aspect of these prospects' lives at this point. So, or at least, 85 to 90% of their lives, because it's impossible until you get a guy in the building to know everything about him. I mean, you're just trying to get as close as you can get, but like a lot of these reports that come out in the media and stuff like that about these prospects, whether it's good or bad, teams already know all that stuff, and it's not going to affect their draft stock or anything like that. But it just sucks to see the media try to push certain things like that. And like I said, it can really affect guys, not necessarily as far as like them falling down the draft or anything like that, but it can really affect, you know, the way that they're viewed in the public eye, and that's just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Back to this Ballard press before we hop into the Q&A. He did mention, one of the most important positions for Mike. He mentioned the tight end class going into the draft. You know how Mike feels about the tight ends and a certain select person of the tight end group. Uh, but Ballard said it was an excellent tight end draft class, as good as he's ever seen it. And I definitely agree 100%. This tight end class, me and Landon seen in person as well, that they got some dogs in there, man. Like, you don't even have to get the best tight end to get some good production out of this tight end group. Like, I feel like no matter where you select one, I feel like you're going to get a good value at that position. Mike and Landon, what are your thoughts? I'm gonna let Mike go first. What is your thoughts about this tight end class, and do you agree with Ballard?
Yeah, I mean, there's solid ones. I mean, there was one in Landon's mock draft the other day.
Yeah,
Durham
Payne Durham for Purdue.
Payne Durham for Purdue. So there was one in there. What did you have him in the 6th round or the late 5th round?
I think it was 5th. One of the
last 5th round pick, because they have 3 of them this year. So I believe it was the last 5th round that you had. So that's one. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I've looked at the tight end class, but Mo Alley Cox still being here. They signed Ferrell Brown, which was made official, I believe, earlier this week. 1 year, $1.5 million. So, I mean, what else are you really going to add to it that's not pushing down Andrew Ogletree, Kylan Granson, and possibly even Jelani Woods? So he did say it's a very deep class. I mean, he said that about the cornerback position as well. And I don't know. I'm just not buying tight end yet, man.
I'll say this too about the Chris Ballard thing, and we've seen this happen multiple times in the draft with them. Is they take a player at a position that most people think that they don't need, and then it ends up working out. Like, think of the Jonathan Taylor selection.
Jonathan Taylor,
years ago.
Julian Blackmon.
Yeah, Julian Blackmon. I mean, like, you never want to pass up a talented player that can possibly change the trajectory of your position group or your team just because you have a bird in hand, because as we know, we never know what's going to happen. We could, hopefully not, but I mean, like, 1 or 2 of these guys could go down with injury next year, and we're light at the position where we only have, 2 guys, 2 or 3 guys. And, that's a position that you really need, especially in the type of offense Shane Steichen runs. And it's not a guarantee as well. You could bring guys in and draft guys and have guys battle it out in camp. So, I mean, it's no guarantee that Mo Alley Cox makes it through camp without being cut, or, that Kylan Granson does end up taking that next leap, and, he struggles a little bit in camp. And, you just never want to pass up a player that is talented just because people think that, well, hey, that's a strong, they don't have a need at that position.
He also implied about adding offensive line depth as well. So definitely looking forward to seeing who he's going to draft on the offensive line situation. If you guys wanted to chime in on that, Landon and Mike, who'd you want Ballard to get from the offensive line in the draft?
Steve Avila, no questions asked. Next question.
Yeah, I think Avila would be a good pick, but you're probably going to have to pick him in the 2nd round. Which, I mean, I wouldn't really have an issue with. I think I think this is a good offensive line class. I don't think you have like that those top tier guys like at the very top. But well, I mean, like, there's a few guys in the first that are going to go 1st round that deserve it.
Yeah.
But I think the depth in this class is really well, especially on the interior. Like, I had Emil Kayor Jr. I think
you said it right. Yeah.
I've been butchering names all week, so you just got to forgive me. But I had them getting him in like the 3rd or 4th round, and I think that's great. I think a guy like Andrew Voorhees could be a great value in this draft. Unfortunately, tore I believe it was his ACL at the combine. And so there's a good chance that his stock drops some, and you're able to get him maybe in like the 5th round. And he could be a really good option for you. And there's also like a lot of really athletic, like talented tackles in this class that like they don't have good technique, or maybe they just don't have really great anchor or play strength or anything like that. But there's some guys with really good length, arm length, and really good athleticism and lateral movement and stuff like that are going to go later in this draft, that they just really need to have patience and work with an NFL roster on perfecting their technique, and they could be good players as well. So I definitely would like to see the Colts draft at least 2 offensive linemen in this class. One of them preferably in the first 3 rounds, especially on the interior. And I think there's a good chance we see that happen.
Yeah, I for obvious reasons, I like Avila, but because he can plug and play at any spot on the offensive line at any of the 3 interior offensive lines, because he played 4 positions in college: right tackle his freshman year, right guard sophomore, spent center part of 2020 and 2021 due to injuries, flopping back and forth. And then Rickard gets in town. Then he solidifies himself at left guard once Alon Ali came in and solidified center, came in at left guard. But he can slide in at right guard there. I would love it. Love the kid. I'm always gonna see him as Esteban instead of Steve. That really came in like this past year. But when it comes going back to tight end, if there's one player in that group that I am just curious how Ballard and company look and project and how they grade him as, if there's one player that I'm just so curious to know where they have him on their board, is Darnell Washington. That's a guy that, my goodness, he is literally a specimen. And he was the second string because they have Brock Bowers, who's going to be a top 5 pick next year. So I'm curious. If we wanted to go tight end, my dream pick would be Darnell Washington.
Well, you're probably gonna have to go into the first round to get him. So
yeah, I'm curious. Is he one of those guys that they had a first round pick on or first round grade on? I'm curious. I wonder if they have him rated as tight end 1 in this draft. If they do, I mean, obviously we're not going to take him, but that's just one guy. That's just one guy. He's a ferocious specimen. Everybody knows it.
Can you imagine him and Jelani Woods on the field together?
Jesus.
That would be nuts.
That would be insane. You already got Pittman if you need jump balls. So, and I mean, Mo Cox too, if you want to throw just size in there.
Or Alex
Pierce. So you got Alex Pierce, yeah.
Yeah, Mo, I mean, he'll probably fall down mid route or drop the pass or whatever, but hey, he's gonna go down there. He's gonna have size. He can box out the corners that are trying to get the ball. There you go.
All right.
Everybody has a role.
Yeah, everybody has a role. Before we that was the end of my presser thoughts. I don't know if you had any more, Landon, that I didn't touch on before we move on.
Yeah, well, there was that, I think you touched on it at the beginning where he said, nobody knows, anything that's coming out. He's like, because nothing's getting leaked from the building. And like, they have been very, I mean, like extremely tight-lipped about this whole process. Like nothing is getting out. So whenever somebody in the media tells you like, well, I heard the Colts love this guy and this is the guy they're targeting, it's false. It's not true because nobody knows. It's just a bunch of projection. But one thing that really caught my attention was like a couple different things, and they're kind of like along the same vein here. One of them was whenever there was a question about, you look at Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and they're ranked 1 and 2 in this class, and you've really kind of seen things shift over the last few weeks. He made the comment, he's like, well, who's ranking them? Because, it's not us, and, they don't know how we've got these guys ranked. And you ask 32 teams, and they're going to give you different answers, for each ranking. So, yeah, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud in the media's eyes might be 1 or 2, but to me, that tells me the Colts might have a completely different top 4 than anybody else. And they might, the guy that's 3rd or 4th on another team's board or in the media's board or in the media's eyes might be a top 2 guy for them. Mm-hmm. And something else that really caught my eye was in that Colts.com interview, he mentioned about picking the guy that was right for them and really putting together a game plan that they can be successful with and successful running with. And not like running, but like, running the system and how to get these guys in the correct system that fits their abilities. And we've heard a lot of talk about certain players that need to be placed in a position to succeed, which I think all guys really do. But there's really one guy that stands out about being kind of system dependent early on, and that you would kind of game plan around his strengths. And that's something Chris Ballard said is, you game plan around their strengths and what they do well as they grow into the role. And that screamed a particular guy to me whenever he said that in that interview. And, whether that's right or wrong, and I'm sure it's just me overthinking everything, because that's what everybody does this time of the year. You just overthink everything. But to me, whenever he said, design an offense and play around the guy's strengths as he's growing into, the role, and that's kind of what they want to do, that just screamed something to me that might, like I said, Chris Ballard's a very honest guy, so he'll tell you exactly what they're going to do, and they'll go out and do it. So that just kind of perked my ears up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, so that might be different. So you combine that with the the comment about they might have a different 1 through 4 than everybody else as well. And that you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there and say, like, well, hey, maybe they've got a guy that's quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 for them that is going to be there at pick number 4 that nobody thinks is the quarterback 1 or 2 in this class outside of, Young and Stroud.
Yeah, he did mention that, he was a very honest GM, and I do agree with him. So
he is.
Yeah.
Sometimes to his own detriment. Like he is extremely honest.
And he mentioned how good of a dancer he was too.
He did.
So let's go ahead and we're about to hop into the Q&A. But this question from William said, we need to move down from 35 if we can. We have tons of needs we can address from picks 50 to 100. I'm pretty sure late in the draft, the Colts are very good at attacking positions of needs late in the draft because they have some good picks late in the draft that we can remember. So I'm not really worried about, late picks when it comes to the Colts. The early picks is questionable, but the late picks, I'm pretty sure they'll attack that very well.
Well, he does a great job in the second round. Chris Ballard kills the second round of the draft.
Absolutely.
But I do agree. And if I was a betting man, I would probably bet my mortgage that they move down from 35.
Man,
I don't think they pick at 35.
Yeah,
one of the things you want to do, especially with if you draft a young quarterback, and we all know they're going to draft a quarterback, it's happening, is you want as many dart throws in the rest of the draft to surround him with what he needs to succeed. And with this draft class, like I said, after you get, because I had 16 first round grades on my board. So they're higher on one guy, I don't know who, that I'm not quite as high on. But other than that, it's probably relatively similar. And for me, you go all the way from probably about pick 20 all the way to about pick 50, 60. All these guys are basically in the very similar range. And so I think if you can move back from 2, get a later second round pick, maybe get an extra 3rd or 4th as well in this draft, I think it's happening. I don't see any way they pick at 35 unless somebody they love and they might have a first round grade on that nobody else has a first round grade on does end up dropping to 35 and they pick that guy. But I think there's a extremely strong chance that they trade down.
Darnell Washington.
I think he's going in the first round. I think he is at the end of the first.
He is.
He might not, but it's just, that's just what I think.
And like you were saying, like we said earlier, they said they have 17 first round grades. And how many times have we seen that Chris Ballard is not going to select a guy just to select a guy? They don't value him at that slot. I mean, go back to 2019. They had pick 26. I was thinking Montez Sweat the whole time, but they didn't value Montez Sweat that highly. So what do? Trade back with Washington. That was the year of the Rock Ya-Sin draft and everything. So they're not going to just select somebody just because they have a selection during that window. They value everybody the same. So can we just trade back and we're going to get the same type of value and we got more compensation for it? So,
and I believe that landed them Michael Pittman Jr. as well.
Yeah, it's the pick that landed because they were pretty sorry that year. So
yeah, they traded with Washington. They had the second overall pick in the draft,
and that's what got them Michael Pittman. So,
all right, so now we're going to head into our Q&A section, and I'm pretty sure Landon has a few questions that popped up from the Q&A. I think we have one question here that I got.
I'm going to pull these up if you want to go ahead and load them onto the board here.
Yeah, for sure. The first question I got, though, is from Evan. He said, let's say Will Levis is drafted to the Colts. If you're the head coach or GM, what's your plan to help develop him?
Is this for me or for Mike?
It's for either one of you if you want to answer it.
I'll let Mike go, and then I'll answer it.
Okay. So what's the plan to – say it again?
I'm about to pull it up now.
Okay. I remember what's the plan, but dang, enlarge that. Man, I'm blind.
Oh, you got glasses.
Hey, I don't want to get into that.
Those are new glasses too.
Oh my gosh, and you remembered?
I do.
That
I've got a mind like a rodent, man.
I can't enlarge it. It says, let's say Will Levis is drafted to the Colts. If you're the head coach or GM, what's your plan to help develop them?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, first off, I'm making sure every offensive lineman in front of him is capable of doing their job to the full. That's number one. Make sure he stays off his back. He's not getting hurt. That's number one. As long as you have a clean pocket and you have time, that's going to help every quarterback, honestly. So that's number one. Just ensuring personnel-wise, that's number one. I think on the roster right now, your weapons can get better, but I think I'll roll with what we got right now. So to help him get better, what does Will Levis do well, right? We've talked about it, Landon. We've talked about it on past shows. Gets the ball out quick. Likes to work on them intermediate throws, can really attack inside, outside those numbers, and really uses his mind well. And he's an underrated runner. I know we always talk about C.J. Stroud's game against Georgia and Anthony Richardson. Will Levis doesn't get enough love about what he can do with his legs. So the same thing you probably want to do with Anthony Richardson is kind of maybe the same thing running mobility-wise, what you want to do with Will Levis, if we're all being honest here. So first off,
I don't know about that.
Did you say something?
Yeah, I said I don't know.
I could have sworn I heard my dog at the door. I didn't know if it was him or you. What's up?
It might have been me. I don't know. But no, I mean I don't think those guys while Will Levis is mobile, I don't think he's as quite as athletic and twitchy that Anthony Richardson is. So I don't know if I would use those guys the same way in the running game. I think Will Levis would be much more utilized, which I'll let you finish and then I'll give my answer.
I got you. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so piggyback off that then. So where did I leave off at? I'm about to go into a whole soliloquy. Oh, yeah, the mobility thing. So basically that's what I think as head coach or GM, whichever one that is. As the GM part, bettering the offensive line, that's number one. That means getting a solid guard in the draft this year. He even mentioned there's still some free agents out there that he thinks that can help them. So he mentioned that as well. If something doesn't go their way in the draft, can always hit free agency, and there are free agents that are waiting for teams to go ahead and go through the draft and see what their options are out there. So that's another example. But as the head coach, that's what I would do, really work on those intermediate throws. That's what Michael Pittman, I think, excels at, those underneath throws, those underneath routes, really. And Isaiah McKenzie, you got Isaiah McKenzie here, so you can get him in space, get him underneath. That's probably what my plan would be rookie year, really just work on some of the basic stuff, get the ball out quick, get him into the hands of your playmakers. Jonathan Taylor, when I get the ball in his hands receiving-wise, obviously you'll get him in the running game. That's, I guess, what my plan was. I'm not entirely sure if that's the answer you was looking for, but thank you for your question. By the way, not sure if mine is going to be as smart as Landon's, but that I'm not. I hope that's what you were looking for.
Wow, I don't know. I don't know if I would describe me as smart, but so like what I would do with Will Levis is first I would design an offense very based around RPOs and play action.
See,
Um,
already is smarter than mine.
so those running like in breaking routes, like you said, attacking the middle of the field is something he excels at, and really not putting a lot on his plate as far as getting through progressions, like very similar to an offense that he kind of ran in college there, like more of like the Liam Cohen one, not as many screens, but you know, getting off of play action and having that one read off of play action where, the guy gets open, he can see it, and then he can just fire the ball with that quick release is kind of how I would attack with him. And then in the RPO game as well, because while he does possess a threat with his legs, like I said, I don't think I would use him much as like a runner, like in a very similar vein, like as Josh Allen or like those type of guys. Um, just because I don't think he's quite as like twitchy as Josh Allen is or Anthony Richardson or those type of guys. I mean, he can be a very effective runner, especially at the goal line and with quarterback sneaks, but I probably wouldn't use him much in the quarterback run game. I think his athleticism is going to come into play as far as, getting him out of the pocket on designed plays, resetting the offensive line and resetting the pocket outside, and just really, like I said, not putting a lot of progressions on his plate where he's having to go through multiple progressions. Really just kind of want to use the running game and the play action game and the RPO game. And I think it would be kind of a very similar offense. And I know people are going to hate this, but it'll be a very similar way that the Colts used Carson Wentz in 2021. That type of offense, that RPO heavy offense, that play action heavy offense. Now, I'm not saying like he's going to be, which I mean, look, we all watched Carson Wentz and we saw that, but I think with Will Levis, I think, and I'm not comparing them because they're two very different players, but I think that's kind of an offense that you want to put him in, more of that. I think a very good offense actually that would compare and what you would really kind of see from him is a guy like Jimmy G and what the 49ers ran. So Jimmy G, one read, very quick release, the ball's out quickly, play action heavy, RPO heavy, Shanahan style system. That's kind of what I would install with Will Levis. Make sure you shore up the offensive line, really use the running game as the engine for your offense, and just kind of allow him to piggyback off of that. And really get some guys that excel in yards after catch. And that's kind of how I would build around Will Levis.
Hey man, I like that answer. Definitely, I can see him and Alec Pierce having a very nice duo. The yards after catch, Alec Pierce is very explosive, especially with the departure of Paris Campbell. I feel like he's going to get more usage moving forward, and that definitely he's going to. I think he's going to have a way better year next year than his rookie year. But hey, I'm looking forward to it. But like I said, the RPO thing idea is very good. I watched the tape with you. How much you enjoy Will Levis tape. But sure, that's a good one. I'm pretty sure you have the rest of the questions. So if you want to go ahead and run them down, or I don't know if you can pull them up or not, be sure to do that.
Yeah, so one of them I had from Nathan at Curious Cult. I'm sure you guys have talked to him before. He said, if you were a GM and were trying to maximize the talent around the quarterback you draft, who are some fits for each player that you like later in the draft? So I don't know if he wants to go through all four quarterbacks or not here, but some fits. So like with Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young could fit with anybody, but I don't know as far as like fits for each player. If you're talking about like wide receivers, if you're talking about offensive linemen, tight ends, to me like a tight end is kind of like the best friend for a rookie quarterback. He's that security blanket. And the Colts kind of already have that, especially like with Jelani Woods and Kylan Granson. But to maximize the talents, I really think it just depends on the offensive line. As far as like with Will Levis or like with Anthony Richardson. So with Anthony Richardson, you're going to build more of a running type of offense, kind of very similar to like the Carolina Cam Newton or like with Jalen Hurts last year in Philadelphia. So we've already seen what that offense looks like with a guy like Anthony Richardson in. So you're really kind of minimizing the plays in the middle of the field or anything, and you're really more focused on RPOs and then explosive plays deep. So you're trying to get more like speedsters and guys that can, take you deep because you can play zone coverages, you can do all that, but after 20 yards, everything's man to man. So a guy like Trey Tucker, a guy like Tyler Scott, I know Marcus is going to love that. So these really speedster type of guys that can allow for those explosive plays 20 plus yards down the field. I would really kind of look for Anthony Richardson. For CJ Stroud, I think you're kind of wanting to do more of a possession type of guy, yards after catch guy. I think Michael Pittman is already a fantastic fit, but I think like a guy that I would love to see with a guy like CJ Stroud would be the Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss, a very, a guy you can line up in the slot and he can be that big, heavy slot that gets you yards after catch, very similar to like a Debo Samuel kind of a guy after the catch, where he's just really physical, tough to bring down. Not saying he's Debo Samuel because I don't think he has that type of speed, but I just think you could use him in a similar fashion as far as playing in the slot. With Will Levis, it would kind of be more of a similar type of thing where you're wanting to attack the middle of the field. So you kind of want that slot guy that can get open. I think a guy like Marvin Mims would be a good fit for them. And with Bryce Young, so he's not going to have like the arm to push the ball down the field like an Anthony Richardson or even a Will Levis or even a CJ Stroud for that matter. But I think his creativity allows for so much, type of things that really you kind of want to get him out on the move and allow him to create. And for that, you're kind of looking at more bigger guys, like especially out in the red zone area. I would love to kind of pair him with like a Darnell Washington or a big guy in the red zone that can. Cedric Tillman would be a great example of a guy that can go up and get the ball, after he's run around and he's throwing a ball 20 yards into the end zone and really kind of allow guys to play above the rim and really maximize because he does have the height deficiency. So you're really looking at more like throwing lanes. And so if you can get guys that know how to get open and have a wider target radius of like bigger guys, I think you can really maximize Bryce Young's skill set. So that's kind of how I would pair different guys with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I like how you stole my guy Tyler Scott because I was gonna say if you give Tyler to Will Levis or Stroud or Richardson, I think that
I think
definitely
him and
elevates
Anthony
the game.
Richardson would be
Whoa,
ridiculous.
I could just see it. That'd just be a crazy dynamic duo. My
Trey
goodness.
Palmer too.
Yeah, Trey Palmer, but boy, the fun it would be with Tyler Scott to watching that offense, man.
Or
I'm
Marvin
not even gonna
Mims,
think
that would
about
be
it. Yeah.
great. So,
Oh yeah.
All right, I've got another question here. It says this is from Gary Busey, so probably a little bit of a crazy question because that dude's nuts. But
Okay.
it's at Cranium Uranium 8.
Hey.
Judging by the tape after Young, how would you rank the other three guys? General pocket awareness and processing when pressured. The S2 scores aside. On this criteria alone, whoever's the weakest, would you deem this more or less fixable? That body mechanics and footworks than body mechanics and footwork if you had a pick. So I don't know if you want me to repeat that. That was a long question, but the first part of that question. So like I said, judging by the tape. So this is strictly going off tape after Bryce Young. How would you rank the other three guys? General pocket awareness and processing when under pressure. So first would it's pretty easily Anthony Richardson under pressure. I think his ability to create, to avoid sacks, and to just be explosive in the run game and out of structure. I think he easily has the best processing and pocket awareness. I think he honestly might have better pocket awareness than Bryce Young, to be honest. Like, I love the way he moves within a pocket. Then I would probably, under pressure, I would probably go Will Levis would be third. Um, Will Levis doesn't necessarily escape pressure that well, but I think what he does do well is he will stand in the pocket and stand strong even while under pressure and deliver a football. He won't get too cute with anything, and I do think he is he is accurate under pressure as well, which will help him out. So I would rank him third, and then last under pressure, surprisingly, would probably be C.J. Stroud. Now, obviously, we had the Georgia game that happened, and that was kind of a revelation. But you also have 2 years worth of game tape before that, and really the only downfall of Stroud's game is when under pressure he does tend to rush his decision making. He's a tick late on throws. Once that first or second read's taken away, he can struggle a little bit. Now, he can go through full progressions. We've seen it on tape. So it's nothing he can't do. But as far as just ranking on the film, I would probably take Richardson, then Levis, then Stroud as far as performance under pressure.
I concur because I was there with Lando when he did it.
Mike, you want to chime in on that one? You have a different ranking?
Okay. Nah, I was gonna go more of the same. Just Richardson, Stroud, or not Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and then Stroud. The biggest thing for Levis over Stroud was you had mentioned it was because of how good he is under pressure, how he can just zip the ball, has a good completion percentage when getting blitzed, whether if it's off the sides, up the middle, in his face. That I basically have the same thing. And Richardson don't really need to harp on it. Stroud, yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You have Georgia, which was really big game, high pressure situation. So that's a good sign that he's capable of doing it when he gets to the league. But then you just can't ignore the 20 other games that he had and that didn't play in. So,
yeah,
I don't know, man. That 18% was shown in that Georgia game.
that was literally the opposite of 18%.
Yeah. I mean, he also had Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka. Probably not going to have those yet that early in the NFL, depending on who
he had those guys, but really, what you're looking at with him is the ball placement. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. If he's
that one along the sidelines of Marvin Harrison Jr., that was
they're just great balls. I mean, you can't really take that the wide receiver doesn't really have anything to do with the throw. And so then the second part of the question on that criteria alone, whoever's the weakest, would you deem this more or less fixable than the body mechanics footwork issue if you had to pick? So, like I said, Stroud would be the weakest, but I think Stroud and Levis are kind of similar in that aspect of as far as not necessarily processing under pressure, but pocket awareness. And to me, no, it's not near as fixable as just the general body mechanics and footwork. I think you can mechanics and footwork. I think with time and with patience can easily be fixed. Well, maybe I would say easy because nothing's easy in the NFL. None of it's easy, but it's definitely a lot easier to fix than processing issues and especially pocket awareness. So pocket awareness, I don't think you can fix at all. I think it's one of those things that you either have or you don't.
Yeah.
It's a sense of, it's just kind of an innate second nature thing that you're either born with where you can sense the pressure and get out of it, or you don't. And
instincts.
Yeah. And if you're a Colts fan and you disagree with that, Peyton Manning said the exact same thing. You can work on your mechanics. You can work on your footwork. You can't, it's not, pocket awareness is not something that improves when you get into
Troy Aikman said it too.
Yeah, I mean, they said you either have it or you don't. So yeah, I would much rather take the guy that just needs mechanical footwork issues, that is great in the pocket and is very aware of his surroundings in the pocket and can escape pressures, than I would take the guy with maybe the better mechanics, but he just falls apart under pressure. It takes a lot of sacks.
Yeah. Is there any other questions left?
Let's see.
I didn't see any.
I didn't see any. You guys in the comments if you're watching this, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on
We gotta.
YouTube or anything. You guys have anything? Facebook? There's some guys on Facebook. Do you have any questions about the draft or any questions you want to know?
Man, we got 6 days. Well, I mean, could safe. No? 6 days, yeah.
Yep, it's coming quick.
It's coming, man. It's coming.
Should I record Landon at the concert for the NFL draft or no?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so Fallout Boy is going to be there. I saw Fallout Boy a long time ago when they were at Warped Tour. So this is probably like 2005, maybe.
And they're still going?
Yep.
Yeah, actually had their first 2 albums. I've seen Motley Crue twice, and so this would be the 3rd time I saw Motley Crue. And I've never seen the 3rd guy, although I know who he is. He's featured in a lot of like rap samples and a lot of songs, so that will be really interesting as well. I know he did a lot of I think he's done like stuff with like Kanye before. And I'm a huge let me phrase it before I say that. The first 4 Kanye albums before he went nuts, I love, like Late Registration, College Dropout, Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Like those are masterpieces to me. But yeah, anything after that is a little bit crazy. But I've seen a lot of concerts, by the way. I've seen a lot of people in concert.
Are y'all ready to head over there?
Yeah, I'm ready.
That's not much of a drive for you though, Landon, is it?
It's right around a little bit less than 6 hours.
Not bad.
Yeah, day early.
Not too bad. Not as bad as Mobile. So that was a longer drive. That was almost 9 hours.
Marcus, are you driving or flying?
I am flying and then parachuting.
Yeah, I'm not
flying, man.
I'll be there a day early.
Marcus over here got the big bucks, man. He flying.
Hey.
Shoot, it might cost more in gas than it would be to fly, honestly.
True. Who you telling?
Gas station coffee will make you forget about it because Landon put me on.
Gas station coffee is underrated.
Landon put me on, so I was like, hey, this stuff hitting.
That stuff is underrated.
Absolutely.
What is?
Gas station coffee.
That stuff comes clutch 3 o'clock in the morning.
That and Ghost energy drinks. I'm a big Ghost.
Oh yeah.
You know what? That drink that Chris Ballard is always drinking during his press conferences, Uptime.
Yeah,
that is a real good energy drink. That's my favorite one. It like when I'm driving late night, if I'm ever like going out of town or something, that's the drink I always get. It's not gonna like give you a jolt. It'll let your eyes and your mind focus.
Yeah, the tropical mango Ghost is to this day the GOAT. It's the GOAT. Can be.
Gotta try it.
It's the GOAT.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything else pop up, so I think we're just gonna wrap it up here. But we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in during the live stream. This is definitely be re-uploaded. So if you guys want to catch back up to the stream, if you missed any moments, feel free to tune into that. So we appreciate you guys on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Subscribe to all our platforms. Check out our website and check out the draft content Landon is producing on the channel as well. Any last words before we head up out of here?
Yeah, so we'll have our last episode, I believe, on Monday, where we're covering the tight ends and the safeties, and then that'll kind of conclude the draft special. But you can watch all the previous episodes, including the big quarterback when we did, on the YouTube channel. Just go make sure to check those out. And we do have film accompanying each guy as well, so we can we break down some plays. Jack does a great job.
Shout out to Jack.
Yeah, Jack does a fantastic job. So super excited to have him on with me and do that. And then outside of that, no, I'm good, man. Just ready for next week. And I don't know. Mike, are you going to be live for the draft? Are you doing a live show?
Could be. I was hoping y'all could be there, but y'all are going to the draft. It's going to be noisy in where y'all are going to be, and y'all are going to have to talk to some people instead of just be in the corner on y'all's phone on the live stream. So Who knows, man? Maybe Jack can join me, but we'll probably have a crew. It's gonna be a big night.
It is. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either, man, for sure. But we're gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we'll be back for soon. So just turn on those notices to stay notified, and we are out.